Timings. Let's talk about timings. You ready to talk about timings?
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you.
Okay, good. So timings is the biggest question I get asked all the time. How do I time my day? And the answer, there's many answers, but the answers really depend on where you're getting married. If you're getting married in the venue where you're then going to spend the whole day and the registrars are coming to the venue, then I recommend the best time to get married is 2 o'clock. This is for a traditional English wedding. If you get married at 2 p.m., your ceremony is usually about 20 minutes long. If that's, will allow some time for you to be late, will allow some time for padding out with some maybe readings or a song or something like that. Basically, we're going to say half an hour max for that time period. So then you're going to say hello to your guests, have a little time there, and then you'll go into what's called a drinks reception, which is where you have your canapes and your Prosecco or whatever drink it is you've chosen for that time period. This is the time when your photographers get busy with their photos. So they are then able to take at least an hour, if not an hour and a half's worth of pictures, which will take you around about to 4 o'clock. So I think a good time is 4 o'clock to sort of then have the venue come and say to the photographers, all right, it's time to start wrapping up now. That gives you 15 minutes to have a little break, go to the bathroom, do anything you need to do before you get announced into the room. So at 4:15, we recommend them basically gathering up all your guests and getting them all sat down. 4:30 or 4:20, you get announced into the room, and then 4:30, the starter comes out. This is allowing then time for a full 3-course meal and for speeches. And so we recommend that you would probably go all the way until about 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. in order to have enough time for your speeches and to get the 3-course meal, out to your guests. Obviously, you have to coordinate that with your venue and see what works for them, but most venues that would work. Around about 6:30 is a good time to then either have teas and coffees at the table or go into a separate room for teas and coffees, wrap up any missed photos that need to be done, and have a little bit more time with your guests before the evening guests arrive. I would recommend invite the evening guests for about 7:30, and then you're looking to do your first dance for about 7:45 or 8 o'clock. So once the first dance is done, then you've got time to relax. And this is really the time where you should enjoy your wedding, because you'll have spent all day being nervous about the ceremony, then being pulled about for pictures, attempting to say hello to everybody. But this really is the time where you want to be able to enjoy your band, enjoy your DJ, and have some fun with your friends. Sometimes people like to do things like a sparkler display, in which case, it's a good time to do that sort of later in the evening, particularly in summer. You need it to get dark, but that's really dependent on how long your photographers are going to stay. And other than that, I think it's just, a good time to just have a lot of fun and then wait until the end of the night. And that usually is anywhere between 11 and 12 p.m., depending on your venue. It's always nice to finish the night with a really fun song that is like the last song of the night, which gets all your guests back up on the dance floor with you to sort of acknowledge and say goodbye to you as a couple. Most of the time, we don't have it anymore where people drive off to the hotel because they're actually staying in the venue that they had their wedding. So it's nice to do that sort of final dance at the end of the night. If you're having a church wedding, it's pretty similar. It's just everything shifts a little bit. So I would recommend a church wedding. You really want to be getting married around about 12:30. I think it also is dependent on how far the church is away from your venue. For example, if your guests are then having to travel half an hour to the venue, you have to add that time in as well. Churches are always an hour ceremony. Some of them occasionally are a little bit shorter, but by the time you've arrived, you've had that moment to then get yourself prepared, walk down the aisle, and then leave again afterwards. It is usually about an hour. More often than not, you'll want to also have some photos at the church. So you need to add in another half an hour there. So that would be 12:30, take you to 1:30, add in that other half an hour to then, take any pictures at the church, which would take you up to about 2 o'clock, at which point you are then traveling to the venue. So if the venue is 15 minutes away, great, that's good timing. If the venue is half an hour away, you may consider starting your ceremony around about 12 o'clock. So if you are doing a church wedding, what I really recommend is then in the time period from arriving at the venue to the sit down meal, you make sure that there's enough canapes and snacks and things like that around, because a lot of your guests will have missed lunch. And so if you're then waiting for them to have the 3-course meal all the way up till 4:30, they're really going to get hungry. So it's a good idea to recommend to your guests that they eat before they get to the church, and then also just have, your choice of canapes, just make them that little bit more. Some people have sliders instead of canapes, like burger and chips or fish and chips, but like the mini ones. So it's just that little bit of substance for people just to keep them going until they get to the 3-course meal. Particularly, you want to keep an eye on elderly parents or grandparents and any other elderly guests, and just make sure that they also, have maybe some things behind the bar or something that, should they need to, they can purchase, or, have some little snacks ready for them. But those are really the 2 main options in England. I say in England because in America they start things so much later, and many other countries have many other traditions. But I think if you use those 2 as guidelines, then that really would help you set up a timeline for pretty much any wedding. Cheesy smile at the end.